Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Ruby Ojha, Professor, Department of Economics in SNDT Women's University, Mumbai. This module is Women and Law for Adult Learners. The most important investment a country can make in the process of its development is on its human resource. History proves that any country has not been able to achieve higher ranking in development indicators without strengthening its social infrastructure, especially education. Education can promote development by improving human potentials. For sustainability of democratic institutions, also well-informed educated population is the first condition. Adult education program in India is an effort to reach those who could not take the opportunity to be educated in usual manner. For running this program, all the state governments have prepared literacy primers and self-learning material for neo-literates. These literacy primers are available on various subjects in various languages. They are written with such relevant real-life examples as users are able to relate with the subject easily. One very important subject that neo-literates, especially women, must know very well is women's rights and the laws which protect them if they are denied their rights. With its political and economic growth and more international interaction in a globalizing world, Indians are becoming more aware about the available rights and opportunities. In this environment, as women and girls are coming out of the four walls of their households for education and employment, in large numbers they are moving into the workforce, getting career oriented and becoming more exposed to the outside world. Mental, physical and sexual harassment, misogamy and gender inequality continue to be a way of life for most of them. In this context, it becomes very important that her awareness about the rights mandated by the Indian Constitution and the legal system gains significance and she is made equipped to exercise these rights. Fundamental and legal rights of women are given as follows. These fundamental rights are right to equality, right to freedom, right against exploitation, right to freedom of religion, culture and educational rights, constitutional remedy. These rights are available to women in India and can be classified into two categories, namely constitutional rights and legal rights. The constitutional rights are those which are provided in various provisions of the Constitution. The legal rights, on the other hand, are those which are provided in the various laws, acts of Parliament and the state legislatures. It is necessary for women to know the fundamental and legal rights in order to protect their interests. Only if they are aware of their rights can they fight against any injustice made on them at home, at the workplace or in the society. In India, all the citizens are entitled to fundamental rights which are given in the Constitution of India. The Indian government has been proactively providing legal safeguards for women. The fundamental rights of the Constitution guarantee for empowerment of women as given below. The Constitutional guarantees for empowerment of women in Article 14, which says equal rights and opportunities for men and women in the political, economic and social spheres. Article 15 says prohibition of discrimination on the grounds of sex, religion, caste, etc. Article 15(3) says empowerment of a state to take affirmative measures for women. Article 16 says equality of opportunity in the matter of public appointments. The directive principles ensure empowerment of women through Article 39, enjoins the state to provide an adequate means of livelihood to men and women and equal pay for equal work. Article 42 says state to ensure the provision for just and humane condition of work and maternity relief. Fundamental duties of the Constitution include Article 51(5) A, E, that is fundamental duty of every citizen to renounce the practices derogatory to the dignity of women. Other rights include right to women are entitlements and freedoms claimed for women and girls of all ages in many societies. Some of these rights are institutionalized or supported by law, local customs and behavior. In India, following acts are having direct bearing on rights of women. These are the Child Marriage Restraint Act 1929, the Factories Act 1948, Section 34 provided that the state government can lay down rules prescribing weights that may be carried by men and women. Employees State Insurance Act 1948, Hindu Marriage Act 1955, Hindu Succession Act 1956, Immoral Traffic Prevention Act 1956, Dowry Prohibition Act 1961, Maternity Benefit Act 1961, the Contract Labour Regulation and Abolition Act and Rules 1970. These provided separate provision of utilities for women and fixed working hours. Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act 1971, the Equal Remuneration Act 1976, Family Courts Act 1984, Indecent Representation of Women Prohibition Act 1986, Child Labour Prohibition Act and Regulation 1986, the Commission of Sati Prevention Act 1987, National Commission for Women Act 1990, Juvenile Justice, Care and Protection of Children Act 2000, Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005, the Prevention of Child Marriage Act 2006, the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act 2012, the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act 2013, Maternity Benefit Amendment Act 2017. Besides, there are several other sections relevant to women's rights in other acts. Along with the protection given to women under these constitutional provisions and under various acts, women are also required to know the legal rights given below. The legal rights which are given to women are free legal aid. Second, police cannot refuse to accept their FIR. No arrest after sunset. Women can't be called to the police station. Right to privacy while recording the statement. Identity can be revealed only after getting the permission from the women. There is no time limit for filing FIR. FIR can be filed through email also. A doctor cannot decide whether a woman is sexually assaulted or not only on the basis of verbal statement. Women are entitled to protection by their employer. These legal rights are also given to women. Besides, common violence against women and related laws are there. Gender discrimination is found in practice despite the right to equality given to women in Constitution of India and despite the government being empowered to adopt equitable discrimination in their favor, women of India still face societal discrimination. Today, whether it is health, education, mortality rate or any other development parameter, women of India are very weak footing. Equal Remuneration Act 1976 prevents discrimination in terms of remuneration. It provides for payment of equal remuneration to men and women for similar work. This is not found in practice even in government run employment programs and schemes like MG Narega. Despite many similar efforts to raise the social status of women equal to that of men, India's ranking is 125 out of 188 countries in 2015 as per Gender Inequality Index of Human Development Report published by UNDP. The same report also reveals that during 2005 to 15, percentage of men above the age of 25 years with at least secondary education was 61.4 and women was 35.3. Similarly, in 2015, percentage of men above the age of 15 years participating in labor force is 79.1% and that of women is 26.8. Gender bias in property and land rights is also found in practice. There is much gender bias in property and land inheritance in India. While providing support to women facing problems concerning marriage, divorce, maintenance, alimony, property rights, custody of child or children, and guardianship rights, there is a huge gap in what appears in law books and what happens in practice. It is realized that the existing personal laws and most of the customary laws were discriminating against women. Testamentary powers deny the daughters their property rights. This problem is more severe in tribal and rural areas. The laws seem to be powerless in front of the social structures that deny daughters full right of residence in the parental dwelling houses. A woman on being abused in her matrimonial home has little choice but to continue to endure it. Her natal household is usually unwilling to have her back for fear of the social stigma attached to single women. These and other considerations restrict a woman's reliance on her parents' households. In times of potentially dangerous marital relations also. On September 9, 2005, the Supreme Court of India granted women's right to ancestral property as per Hindu Succession Amendment Act 2005. Child marriage is also prevalent in India. According to the International Center for Research on Women, Washington, D.C., almost 47% of girls are married before the age of 18. Currently, India ranks 13 in the world when it comes to child marriages. Although in India, child marriage has been banned since 1860 and the Child Marriage Restraint Act was passed in 1929, it is still a common practice. The Prohibition of Child Marriage Act was made effective in 2006. The Act defines child marriage where the bride is under the age of 18 years or the boy is younger than 21 years. Parents trying to marry under-age children are subject to action under this law. Still, according to UNICEF's State of World Children 2009 report, 47% of India's women aged 20 to 24 were married before the prescribed legal age of 18 years, 56% of rural areas and remaining in urban areas. About 40% of world's child marriages occur in India. Laws related to safety of women and girls are also there in India. Following the gang rape of a 23-year-old physiotherapist in a moving bus in Delhi on 16th December 2013, Justice Verma Committee was appointed to bring changes in the antiquated rape laws. The law on rape 2013 makes stalking and cyber stalking, section 354D, voyeurism, sexual harassment, a crime. It also provides for the death penalty for repeat offenders or the rape attack that lead to the victim's death. The law also makes it a crime for police officers to refuse to open cases when they receive complaints of sexual attacks. The Parliament of India has also passed the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act 2012, aimed at protecting children in India against the evil of child sexual abuse. It came into force on 14/11/2012, that is Children's Day in India, along with the rules framed under the Act. Feticide is one of the causes of declining child sex ratio. The sex ratio, the number of women per thousand men, is a critical indicator of both social attitudes towards women as well as the changing dimensions of social denominators with regard to gender and development. Though all medical tests determining the sex of the child have been banned, still India has a high masculine sex ratio. This is attributed to the female infanticide and sex selective abortions. After Maharashtra passed a legislation to regulate prenatal sex determination tests in 1988, Parental Diagnostic Techniques Regulation and Prevention of Misuse (PNDT) Act was enacted in 1994 by the Centre. This was followed by similar acts by several state governments and union territories of India. This was the result of pressure created by Forum Against Sex Determination and Sex Preselection, but there was a gross violation of this central legislation. After filing of PIL in the Supreme Court of India by Sehat, Masoom and Dr. Sabu George, Preconception and Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques Act 2002 was passed. Dowry is another evil. Dowry is often asked from the bride and her family by the groom and his family. The system has taken strong roots in patriarchal societies. When demands for dowry, even after marriage, are not met by the bride's families, then many brides are tortured, beaten, or even killed. Sometimes brides are not able to face the torture and commit suicide. In 1961, Government of India passed the Dowry Prohibition Act. According to this act, taking or giving of dowry at the time of marriage to the bride or the bridegroom and their family is to be penalized. Domestic violence is also found prevalent in India. The Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005 came into force on October 26, 2006. This act provides for more effective protection of the rights of women guaranteed under the Constitution who are victims of the violence of any kind occurring within the family, and for matters connected therewith of incidental thereto. The scope of this legislation has been widened to include persons who have shared households and are related by consanguinity, marriage or a relationship in the nature of marriage, or adoption to relationship with family members. Even those women who are sisters, widows, mothers, single women, or living with the abuser entitled to get protection. As a result of the pressure of women's groups and judicial activism, new provisions of laws have been provided, such as recognition of the right to residence of a woman in the parental or matrimonial homes, provision for the appointment of protection officers, and the recognition of service providers generalize, gender sensitization trainings for protection officers and judges with regard to criminal legal system, procedural laws, rules and infrastructure and budgetary allocation for strengthening the structures and mechanisms for implementation. Child labor laws are also there. The Government of India recently amended the child labor laws, allowing children below the age of 14 to work in family business and the entertainment industry, excluding circus, to create a balance between the need for education for a child and reality of the socio-economic condition and social fabric in the country. The amendment also introduced a new definition of adolescents children between 14 and 18 years of age and barred them from working in any hazardous industry. However, the recent statistics about the child labor is very disturbing. 1 in every 11 children in India is working. 80% of working children are based in rural areas and 3 out of 4 of these children work in agriculture. More than half of the 5.5 million working children in India are concentrated in 5 states, that is Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra. Merely 10% of adolescents working in hazardous conditions are working in family enterprises. 56% of the working adolescents are no longer studying and 70% of those in hazardous conditions are not studying. More boys, that is 38.7 million, than girls, that is 8.8 million, are involved in hazardous work. While the incidence of hazardous work among adolescents is highest in Nicaragua, the number of adolescents in hazardous work is greatest in India, that is 2.4 million. This is reported in International Labour Organization's World Report on Child Labour 2015 and CRY recent analysis of Census 2011. Harassment at workplace is also found prevalent in India. After 30 years of consistent efforts, Indian women's movement has managed to get the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act 2013. During the 1990s, the most controversial and brutal gang rape at the workplace involved a Rajasthan state government employee who tried to prevent child marriage as part of her duty as a worker of the Women Development Program of Government of Rajasthan. The feudal patriarchs who were enraged by her guts, in their words, a lowly woman from a poor and potter community decided to teach her a lesson and raped her repeatedly in public. After an extremely humiliating legal battle in the Rajasthan High Court, the rape survivor did not get justice and the rapists, educated and upper caste affluent men, were allowed to go free. This enraged a women's rights group called Vishakha that filed public interest litigation in the Supreme Court of India. This resulted into Vishakha Directive by Supreme Court of India in 1997 that made employers responsible for safety of women. The Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act 2013 seeks to protect them from sexual harassment at their place of work. Sexual harassment at workplace also includes the use of language with sexual overtones, invasion of private space with a male colleague hovering too close for comfort, subtle touches and innuendos. Rights of working women are known to work in all types of occupations. The majority of women work in unorganized sector for low wages and at low levels of skills. Women constitute significant part of the workforce in India, but they lag behind men in terms of work participation rate, which is 26% as compared to 52% males. And quality of employment also is bad for women. About 80% of women workers are employed in agricultural sector as laborers and cultivators. In urban areas, on an average wage or salary paid to women is about 75% of that paid to men, while in rural areas women are paid about 58% of what is paid to men. This wage disparity differs across sectors and educational levels. In addition to the Maternity Benefits Act 1961, almost all the major central labor laws are applicable to women workers. This act regulates the employment of women and maternity benefits mandated by law. It states that a woman employee who has worked in an organization for a period of at least 80 days during the 12 months preceding the date of her expected delivery is entitled to receive maternity benefits, which includes maternity leave, nursing breaks, medical allowance, etc. The Equal Remuneration Act was passed in 1976, providing for the payment of equal remuneration to men and women workers for same or similar nature of work. In respect of occupational hazards concerning the safety of women at workplace, in 1997, the Supreme Court of India, in the case of Vishakha versus State of Rajasthan 1997, section 241, held that sexual harassment of working women amounts to violation of rights of gender equality. Participation of women in panchayats and municipalities was also allowed through 73rd and 74th amendments of the Constitution, which provides for 33% of reservations of seats for women in panchayats and municipalities. UNDP report 2002 reported the evidence of gender and decentralization in India suggests that while women have played a positive role in addressing or attempting to address a range of practical gender needs which are identified as keeping into consideration gender-based division of labor or women's subordinate position in the economy. They are a response to immediate perceived necessity identified within a specific context. They are practical in nature and often are concerned with inadequacies in living conditions such as provision of fuel, water, health care and employment. Their impact on strategic gender needs. Strategic gender needs are defined as different in different economic contexts and are determined by statutory provisions, affirmative actions by state, proactive role of the employers to enhance women's position in the economy and social movements. Lastly, we can conclude that the legal framework available to women in India for safety, security and progress is quite satisfactory, but the major challenges in the way of getting justice for a woman are the prejudiced social system, faulty implementation, biased governance structure and societal attitude which does not want to break the traditional norms. Majority of Indian women do not know their rights and even if they know, they do not have the necessary means to exercise their rights in the family, workplace and in the society. Thank you.